There's a town in the United States where your toilet can literally freeze from the inside. That's not folklore or exaggeration. It's real. Welcome to Wisdom, Montana, where the average winter temperature hovers around 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And somehow, people don't just end up there, they choose it. We hear plenty about cold states, but almost no one talks about the places tucked inside them. The towns so cold they don't make travel lists. The corners of the map where winter isn't something you get through, but something you build a life around. This isn't a surface-level countdown. We're diving into communities that are cold enough to intimidate you, yet strange, resilient, and beautiful enough to make people stay. These are forgotten ports, frozen valleys, and remote towns where human connection runs warmer than the thermostat ever will. We're heading to a tiny Vermont hamlet where winter feels less like punishment and more like therapy. To an Alaskan city where the sun disappears for 65 straight days, and kids still ride their bikes to school like it's no big deal. You think you know the coldest states? Great. Now let's test that confidence. And trust me, you are not prepared for the town called Greenland, Michigan. Spoiler alert, it isn't green. It's barely hanging on. But somehow, it refuses to quit. If you've ever wondered whether it's possible to live smarter than your climate, hit subscribe. It might just save your face from freezing off. Let's break it down. Number 10. Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, there's a town where locals swear the snow doesn't actually melt. It just moves somewhere else. That town is Hurley, one of the coldest pockets in the state. Winter temperatures average around 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and annual snowfall regularly tops 150 inches. Here's the running joke. If climate change ever turns the rest of the planet tropical, Wisconsin will still somehow stay frozen. And yet, this is where things get strange. People don't leave, they stay. Some even move in. Folks buy homes here like they're preparing for an emotional winter that never really ends. Hurley looks like a place where snow shovels get passed down through generations. But beneath all that ice and frostbite is a surprisingly workable cost of living. Expenses run about 17% below the national average, and median rent sits near $750 a month, which, yes, is still allowed here. Crime is lower than in most U.S. towns of similar size, despite the fact that Hurley looks like the perfect setting for a small-town secrets documentary. The local economy leans on its mining roots, light manufacturing, healthcare, and seasonal tourism. And in winter, snowmobilers basically become celebrities, the Kardashians of cold weather. One local Reddit comment summed it up perfectly. If you don't like winter, don't worry. It'll be back in 10 minutes. What outsiders don't realize is that the cold eventually becomes more than weather. It turns into a shared identity, a rite of passage, something between a personal challenge and a long-running dare. In Hurley, winter isn't a season. It's a roommate who overstays, eats your groceries, and tracks snow through the house. Utility bills climb. Cars revolt. Your face forgets what warmth feels like. But in exchange, you get something rare. A community thicker than the ice on Lake Superior. A culture that values resilience over aesthetics. Streets where people wave not out of politeness, but because survival is a team effort. Wisconsin winters feel like nature's version of hazing. Every time you scrape ice off your windshield, the universe laughs and adds another layer. Roads are either full of potholes or frozen potholes. And somehow, every coffee shop seems shocked when you ask for a hot drink in February. Oh, you want warmth? Bold request. Honestly, the chaos deserves respect. And if you think Wisconsin is intense, just wait until the next place, where cold isn't just weather anymore. It's a full-time identity. Number 9. Montana. Deep in Montana sits a town called Wisdom, where winter temperatures can plunge to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And yes, the cows really do wear coats. Actual coats. Welcome to what might be the closest thing America has to a natural freezer. This is the kind of place where your car refuses to start, your phone battery gives up instantly, and your nose hairs freeze the second you step outside. And that's not a crisis. That's just a regular weekday in Wisdom. It ranks among the coldest permanently inhabited towns in the lower 48 states. Living here isn't about dealing with winter. It's more like maintaining a long-term relationship with firewood, diesel fuel, and layered clothing. And yet, against all logic, people keep moving here. Here's why. The cost of living runs about 12% below the national average, which means you technically pay less to endure more. Median home prices sit around $220,000, mostly solid ranch-style houses built to survive weather, time, and possibly unresolved spirits. Crime is extremely low. Your biggest danger is slipping on your own icy porch. As for jobs, self-reliance is the economy. Ranching, remote work, snowplow repair, equipment maintenance, and general frontier survival all count as valid career paths. One Reddit user summed it up perfectly. You haven't really lived until you've used a chainsaw to dig your car out of snow at 3 a.m. What people don't warn you about is how addictive the silence becomes. The air is clean. Traffic doesn't exist. Time feels warped, like you arrived 200 years too late, and somehow exactly when you were supposed to. The cold doesn't just inconvenience you here, it humbles you. It wipes out mental clutter because your focus narrows to staying warm and staying upright, and strangely, that's the appeal. In wisdom, everything feels earned. Warmth means stacking wood. Community means clearing your neighbor's driveway without being asked. This isn't a lifestyle brand, it's proof of life. Let's talk about Montana wind for a moment. Calling it wind is generous. It's more like a physical reprimand from nature. You'll check the forecast, see feels like -30, and still spot someone in cargo shorts buying jerky at the gas station. And the snow doesn't gently arrive. It ambushes. Clear skies can turn into a whiteout in 20 minutes, sometimes before you even finish shoveling your driveway. Eventually, you stop shoveling altogether and start negotiating with the sky. Then comes the quiet. Real quiet. The kind that only exists when everything is frozen solid. You breathe in air so sharp it feels like it could slice bread. Somewhere in the distance, a lone snowmobile hums like a frost-covered mosquito. And somehow, it feels right. And if you think Montana is extreme, just wait until the next town, where the sun doesn't show up at all for 2 straight months. Number 8. Minnesota. Deep in northern Minnesota sits a town called Embarrass. And no, it's not named after your karaoke performance. It earned that name honestly because winter here is so unforgiving that even Canadians feel compelled to send condolences. You've probably heard of Minneapolis, maybe Duluth. But Embarrass is the real heavyweight champion of cold. It's widely recognized as the coldest town in the state, regularly plunging to 30°F, with a recorded low of 60°C. That's not chilly, that's a crime scene for warmth. And yet, people don't just endure life here, they choose it. Families stay for generations. They host winter festivals. They snowmobile to the grocery store like it's a normal Tuesday. There's a quiet pride in living somewhere that actively tries to defeat you half the year. And failing. The average winter temperature in Embarrass hovers around 6°C, which is colder than most commercial freezers. The cost of living runs about 10% below the national average, unless you factor in the lifetime investment in gloves. Median rent across Minnesota averages around $1,500, but in rural towns like this, it's noticeably lower. Crime is minimal, largely because no one is committing a break-in when it's 50°C outside. The local job market leans heavily on healthcare, manufacturing, and snow removal, which here is less a job and more a way of life. Living in Embarrass isn't just about checking the forecast. It's a full lifestyle commitment. Think of it like joining a club where the only rule is don't freeze. Emotionally, you either adapt quickly or you leave. Financially, you'll save on housing, but a significant portion of your budget will disappear into propane, heating oil, and windshield fluid. The trade-off? A community that actually shows up. Neighbors wave. People shovel each other out without being asked. And the silence in the surrounding woods isn't unsettling, it's restorative. Now let's talk snow, not the soft romantic kind. Embarrass gets snowfall that buries cars, mailboxes, and your motivation to step outside. Snowplows don't really clear roads. They simply relocate the chaos directly into your driveway. Bonus experience: stepping outside for 30 seconds and losing all sensation in your teeth. Yes, your teeth. Picture this. You wake up in a log cabin as a fire crackles nearby. You sip hot coffee while a moose stares at you through the window like it's judging your life choices. You smile, then realize you left your car running overnight and it's still frozen solid. Minnesota has over 11,000 lakes, and not a single one that can unfreeze your windshield wipers. Remember Wisdom, Montana? Embarrass saw that and said, "Hold my beer," then froze it into a block of ice. Number 7. Wyoming. In Wyoming, the wind doesn't gently pass through. It comes for you. This isn't a breeze. It's an aggressive, full-contact encounter with airborne ice. Welcome to a state where the weather plays the villain and inner calm becomes a survival skill. We're focusing on Pinedale, a high-altitude town where winter isn't just a season. It shapes who you are. Sitting at more than 7,100 feet above sea level, Pinedale is high enough to mess with your phone signal, your oxygen levels, and most definitely your body heat. The scenery is breathtaking. The quiet is intense. And the cold? Let's just say, your nose will never forget it. On paper, Wyoming looks like an obvious escape from urban chaos. Winter temperatures in Pinedale average around 12 degrees Fahrenheit, which feels colder than a tax auditor's handshake. The state has no income tax at all. Zero. Nothing. Not a dime. Wyoming isn't interested in your paycheck. It just wants to know how much discomfort you can tolerate. Statewide, median home prices hover near $300,000. Crime rates are among the lowest in the country. And even criminals seem uninterested in operating during wind chill warnings. Employment here revolves around energy, ranching, tourism, and remote work, assuming your internet connection survives the snowstorms. Living in Wyoming is a bit like dating someone who's stunning, distant, and completely indifferent to your feelings. It's raw, beautiful, and unapologetic. By January, you'll freeze your eyelashes and start naming your thermal layers like they're emotional support animals. Still, the combination of low taxes, low crime, and unmatched freedom keeps people rooted. It's hard to explain, but once you live it, you understand why so many stay. Now, let's return to the wind. Wyoming wind isn't weather, it's a lifestyle choice. You'll see people walking backward just to protect their faces. Hoodies don't survive here. If you wear one, it will be claimed by the wind gods. Trucks aren't a fashion statement. They're necessary equipment to avoid being physically relocated to Nebraska. Imagine waking up in a log cabin. Outside, there's nothing but snow and elk tracks. The wind rattles the roof like it's collecting a debt. The air bites. Your coffee steams violently. The silence is deep, almost philosophical. And suddenly, rush hour traffic feels like a bad dream you barely remember. Wyoming's crime rate sits at roughly half the national average. Meanwhile, states like Louisiana sit at double. So the choice becomes clear: frozen peace or humid chaos. And for a surprising number of people, the cold wins. Number 6. North Dakota. North Dakota doesn't just drain your car battery, it completely erases your urge to complain about anything ever again. We're heading to Bowman, often misheard, always frozen, a town where temperatures have dropped to 60 degrees, and people still went to work. Around here, frostbite isn't considered a danger, it's just part of the weekday routine. At first glance, North Dakota looks flat, quiet, and relentlessly cold, but beneath all that snow is a state that's shockingly stable. Winter temperatures in Bowman average around 7 degrees. The unemployment rate sits near 2.1%, one of the lowest in the entire country. Median home prices hover around $180,000, which means yes, you can buy a house for roughly the cost of a used Honda Civic. Crime rates here run about 40% lower than the national average, and the overall cost of living is roughly 8% below average. One local summed it up perfectly: if your snowblower breaks, someone will lend you theirs before you even finish complaining. Here's the part that surprises outsiders. People actually like it here. The cold acts like a filter. It scares off the flaky and leaves behind tight-knit communities, legendary ice fishermen, and neighbors who show up unannounced when your pipes burst. Let's be honest, though. You don't move to Bowman for nightlife, culture, or oxygen-rich air. You move for space, for safety, for a strange kind of freedom that only exists when you're far removed from everything loud, rushed, and chaotic. But the cold, that part is personal. It finds its way into your bones, your mailbox, and eventually, your soul. Your snow shovel becomes part of your identity. You stop measuring time in hours and start counting fleece layers instead. Here's what winter wind in North Dakota feels like. Snow blowing sideways, ice forming on your eyelashes, and you're still expected to show up to work. Like this isn't an outdoor survival challenge. Ever tried pumping gas at 30°F while your eyelids slowly freeze shut? That experience either builds character or lifelong trauma. North Dakota consistently ranks among the safest states in the country. Meanwhile, warmer places like Arizona often see more break-ins than snowflakes. Turns out extreme cold doubles as an excellent security system. And if you think this is cold, the next stop takes things even further. A place where the sun doesn't rise at all for 2 straight months. Buckle up. Number 5. Vermont. Vermont doesn't just get cold, it gets quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you stop mid-thought and reconsider several life decisions. We're heading to Island Pond, a tiny village tucked inside Vermont's Northeast Kingdom. Yes, that's the real name. It sounds charming until you realize the kingdom's main exports are snow, silence, and mild existential reflection. On the surface, Island Pond looks like a Hallmark movie set, but it doesn't run on cozy vibes alone. This place survives on resilience, wood stoves, and a level of sarcasm that could insulate a house. Winter temperatures average around 15°C, and the population sits below 1,000, very much by choice. Financially, it's surprisingly doable. Median home prices hover near $175,000, meaning you can buy a cabin and still afford decent socks. The cost of living is about 5% lower than the national average, and crime is nearly non-existent, unless you count passive-aggressive snow shoveling as a misdemeanor. One local Reddit comment nailed it. It's not remote, you're just less surrounded by nonsense. Island Pond doesn't chase attention, it actively avoids it. People come here to unplug, slow down, and quietly judge leaf peepers every October. But that stillness comes with trade-offs. Convenience is the first thing to go. Say goodbye to Uber, Target, and reliable cell service. In return, you get something most cities can't sell: clarity. It shows up after a heavy snowfall, when everything goes silent and you suddenly realize, oh, this is what peace actually sounds like. Of course, you'll need 4-wheel drive, at least 17 layers of clothing, and the ability to discuss snow depth with neighbors like it's a matter of national security. In Island Pond, snow doesn't melt. It settles. It lies down on your roof like it's planning a long nap. And if you think you're just running to the store, no, you're not. You're shoveling first. Vermont snowplows operate on mysterious principles. Sometimes they arrive, sometimes they don't. Either way, the snow always wins. Island Pond averages fewer than 5 crimes a year. Las Vegas hits that before lunch. It's a simple trade: blackjack for black ice. So be honest. Would you rather shovel snow every morning or sit in traffic next to strangers oversharing on speakerphone? Like this video if you've ever pretended to love winter just to impress someone with a Subaru. Subscribe if you want your relocation strategy to include things like not freezing to death and owning property without selling a kidney. Vermont offers peace and frostbite in equal measure. It's poetic. It's risky. Kind of like dating a poet who owns an axe. Number 4. Idaho. Idaho has a way of reminding you who's in charge. In Stanley, the winter air is so sharp it feels like it could slice open an Amazon box on its own. This is a town that regularly wakes up as the coldest spot in the continental United States, all while looking like a desktop wallpaper you'd assume was fake. Average winter temperatures hover around 8°F, and the record lows are the kind of numbers people mention quietly, like they might summon something if spoken too loudly. And yet, people live here. Not as a stunt, not temporarily. They choose it. Stanley sits tucked into a valley surrounded by the Sawtooth Mountains, wrapped in hot springs, wildlife, and a level of silence usually reserved for awkward group chats after someone asks who's covering the bill. It's remote, rugged, and unexpectedly compelling. The stats are better than you'd expect. Crime rates run about 70% lower than the national average, mostly because crime struggles when everyone knows exactly which truck belongs to whom. Median home prices sit near $450,000, which is high by Idaho standards, but reasonable for a place that looks like a postcard came to life. Idaho's overall cost of living is close to the national average, though winter heating bills spike aggressively. Think crypto chart energy. The local economy revolves around tourism, outdoor work, remote jobs, and a surprising number of people who manage Airbnbs like it's a personality trait. One local put it best: "If you don't like winter here, don't worry. You'll still be cold in the summer." That's the paradox of Idaho. It's beautiful, quiet, and brutally honest. No crowds, no performance, no nonsense. Just scenery that humbles you and weather that refuses to negotiate. Living in Stanley means entering a part-time contract with winter. Grocery runs are planned like missions. Cars are preheated. By January, your face has permanent windburn. But emotionally, the payoff is rare. You get space, real space, room to think. A place where your thoughts echo and the mountains absorb whatever stress you brought with you. Community here isn't branding. It's a survival system. Yes, heating costs may make you question your choices. But the reward is waking up to views that feel unfair to the rest of the country. Let's be honest. Stanley snow doesn't gently fall. It arrives with intent, like it's been waiting all year to destroy your driveway. And Idaho drivers? They'll pass you on icy roads at 80 mph in a Subaru with one headlight, sipping black coffee and silently judging your traction control. The wind doesn't blow. It interrogates. Picture this. You step out of a cabin as steam rises from a nearby hot spring. The sawtooths glow pink in the morning light. Your breath crystallizes instantly. A fox wanders past like it owns the valley. You feel cold, but calm. Small, but alive. That's when it clicks. That's why people stay. Stanley winters are like a brutal breakup, painful, humbling, and strangely clarifying. They don't just test you, they show you who you are. Idaho's biggest danger is black ice. Florida's biggest danger is Florida. Choose wisely. Number 3. Michigan. There's a town in Michigan where winter doesn't simply show up. It settles in, claims the living room, and challenges you to say something about it. Welcome to Greenland, Michigan, buried deep in the Upper Peninsula. Despite the name, it's rarely green, almost never warm, and completely devoted to the cold. Winter temperatures here average around 13 degrees, and the lake effect snow doesn't drift down politely. It piles up with purpose. This is the kind of place where snow doesn't fall. It commits. Most people associate Michigan with Detroit or summer lake houses, but the UP is a different universe altogether. It's harsher, quieter, and far more straightforward. And the numbers tell a story most people miss. The cost of living sits roughly 12% below the national average. Homes in towns like Greenland average around $140,000, which is somehow less than many people still owe on student loans. Crime is well below the national rate. Your biggest danger is doing something dumb with a snowblower. Work here exists, just not loudly. Healthcare, skilled trades, mining, long-standing local industries, and remote jobs all play a role, assuming your internet cooperates. Quality of life is high if you value space, nature, and not being constantly interrupted. One local summed it up perfectly. If you survive one winter here, you're basically family. What people don't tell you is that Michigan cold isn't about temperature, it's about stamina. The lakes amplify everything. The quiet gets louder. Time stretches. And the people? They're built differently. Living here means winter sets the schedule. Heating bills rise, roads vanish. Days slow down whether you want them to or not. But the trade-off is real. Stability, affordability, and a community that actually shows up when things go sideways. Nobody moves to Greenland to impress anyone. You move here because you want room to think and snow thick enough to silence the rest of the world. Let's talk potholes for a second. Michigan potholes aren't potholes. They're experiences. You hit one, and your car starts questioning its purpose. Add snow on top, and suddenly it's a surprise game show you didn't sign up for. Lake effect snow doesn't help either. Blue skies in one town, whiteout conditions 2 miles later. It's weather with commitment issues. Picture this. Snow stacked against your front door. Pine trees creaking in the wind. Air so clean it almost hurts. You sip coffee while the world stays quiet longer than usual. No traffic, no noise, just white space. And somehow, it works. But if you think Michigan is relentless, the next place takes cold, removes daylight entirely, and calls it a lifestyle decision. Number 2. Maine. Maine doesn't ask whether you're cold, it assumes you are, and hands you an axe without explanation. Welcome to Jackman, a town so remote that GPS systems occasionally give up and suggest you rethink your life choices. Hidden deep in the Maine North Woods, Jackman sees average winter temperatures around 11 degrees. And when snow arrives, it doesn't flirt. It moves in and takes over. Most people know Maine for Portland or Bar Harbor. Jackman is something else entirely. It's not a destination. It's a commitment. This place isn't built for tourists. It's for people who like their winters unforgiving, their cabins drafty, and their nearest neighbor several miles away by design. Let's look at the numbers. The cost of living sits about 10% below the national average. Median home prices hover around $150,000. Yes, for an actual house made of real wood, complete with stories that may or may not involve bears. Crime is almost non-existent, unless you count competitive snowmobiling with a passive-aggressive edge. Work here exists, just not loudly. Forestry, skilled trades, seasonal tourism, and remote work all play a role, assuming you arrive with your own reliable internet solution. In Jackman, winter isn't a season, it's a belief system. Roads disappear, weather feels personal. Coffee stays hot because letting it cool feels like a medical risk. And yet, people love it. Jackman doesn't pretend to be trendy, convenient, or modern. It's isolated, honest, and quietly beautiful. For the people who choose it, that simplicity isn't a drawback. It's the entire appeal. Snowbanks here aren't cleared so much as redirected. Roads become frozen corridors until spring, and the local hardware store dedicates an entire wall to flannel. Not a joke, a category. You'll also know you've gone fully local when your neighbor names their backup generator. Step outside early in the morning. Your boots crunch into fresh powder. The air smells like pine and wood smoke. There's no traffic, no signage, no noise, just the steady breath of the forest and your own breath fogging the air. Jackman doesn't advertise survival. It practices it quietly, without asking for approval. And one more thing. Maine is the only U.S. state with a single-syllable name, yet it somehow delivers nearly 5 months of winter. Efficient language, excessive weather. Remember Embarrass, Minnesota? Jackman doesn't compete for the cold crown. It simply hands you a shovel and walks away. Number 1. Alaska. Alaska isn't cold. It's a challenge issued directly to your soul. You don't relocate here for comfort. You come because you want to feel something again. Like your eyelashes freezing together while your phone shuts down mid-text, not out of battery, but out of respect for the environment. Welcome to Utqiaġvik, formerly Barrow, the northernmost town in the United States. It sits above the Arctic Circle, where daylight becomes optional. This place spends more than 65 consecutive days in total darkness, with winter temperatures averaging around 20 degrees and wind chills that feel less like weather and more like a personal vendetta. And still, people live here. By choice. Let's talk reality. The cost of living runs about 36% higher than the national average. Groceries are expensive in a way that feels fake until you're staring at a $10 watermelon wondering where your life went wrong. Crime rates are higher than you'd expect for a town with no roads leading in or out. But median household income sits around $82,000, thanks largely to oil jobs and hazard pay that quietly acknowledges, yes, this is extreme. Homes here average roughly $280,000, and that price mostly guarantees one thing, a roof that hopefully works. Living in Alaska isn't romantic, it's resilient. You trade Target runs and food delivery for isolation, problem solving, and learning to treat a snow machine the way other people treat a sedan. Social life becomes a mix of tight-knit community meals, long-distance friendships, and the occasional bear advisory. But what you gain is rare. Stillness. Silence so deep you can hear your thoughts bounce around. Stars so bright they look hand-drawn. A pace of life that feels human again, not optimized. This is remote in the truest sense. You don't drive to Utqiaġvik, you fly. There are no connecting highways. Amazon Prime arrives when it arrives. Daylight in December? That's comedy. And if you forget to plug in your car battery, not the engine, the battery, congratulations. You're walking to work like an underqualified sled dog. Step outside at 10 a.m. It's pitch black. Snow glows blue under the moon. The air stings, but it's clean, painfully clean. No traffic, no noise. Just the crunch of snow underfoot and the distant hum of a diesel heater. It's so cold your thoughts slow down and somehow become clearer. For the record, Alaska has more caribou than people. So yes, technically, your neighbor could be a herd. Remember when Maine felt intense? Alaska looked at that and said, "Hold my glacier." Like this video if you've ever complained about winter and now feel personally attacked. Subscribe if you think moving to Alaska might either solve all your problems or create entirely new ones wrapped in ice. Alaska. Come for the adventure. Stay because your flight got canceled.